O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack, the prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting. Why follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring? But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. Happy Saturday, everyone, on your weekend. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can like the Hockey Podcast on Facebook. You can follow Podcast Hockey on Twitter. And we are continuing to redevelop and build the website as well. We are not live. We made an announcement that we were planning to go live, but we did have some technical issues, so next weekend we will be better equipped for this live thing, and we will try that going forward, because we do want the fan interactions. But we are here. We are ready to go. There is a lot to talk about. We are joined by Sean. Hello, Sean.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. We were just quickly talking about my attempt to quit coffee, that has lasted just an hour, I think, really. Pretty much not long enough. So I'm back on coffee. We were just talking about that. But you're doing okay?
Yeah, I'm on coffee number 2 for today and prepping to go to the Flames versus Canucks game tonight with Heidi and Chris and a few others.
Yes, Heidi is going. Yes, Heidi, you're going to be there.
Yes, I will be there. I'm looking forward to spending so much time with all of my friends who are Canucks fans. And Flames are going to pull out a win, I think, and then I'll just be able to, belittle them a little bit.
It's
live.
Yeah. Belittle them. Yes. Now we have another caller on the line. It's been a while. Who is T? He's new. Tyler? Is it Tyler? Is it?
Tyler is correct. Yes. Up in the sticks.
Up in the sticks.
Yes.
Tyler from the sticks.
Up in the sticks. Yeah. Terrace, to be precise. Nice to be back with the three of you. Kevin in particular. I'm just listening to that preview of what the Canucks Flames game will be like at the Saddle Dome. I'm just wondering if the Canucks are winning, how much temptation there will be for Heidi to want to strangle the other guys.
I want to strangle Sean all the time. So, it'll probably only just be fueled.
Fair. Oh, well, both teams are going into this game 0-1. We'll get into that a little bit. But we will start with the Canucks this time because, and the poem, although cryptic in some ways, led to one of the things that had Canuck fans talking, which was basically this.
The announcement I have today is that we are going to name a captain this season. We've put a lot of thought into it. We don't take it lightly. We think that it's the right time for our organization and the right time for the person we're going to name. We're going to do it. We think it's a special moment and something that our fans should be able to witness firsthand. And we're going to make the announcement on our first home game Wednesday night.
So, the worst kept secret in Vancouver is that Bo Horvat will be named the captain of this team on the home opener Wednesday night when the Canucks play the Los Angeles Kings. I guess to start off with here is this a nice, good way to do it? Or did it matter to you that this was not part of the Oilers game?
I think it's a very interesting debate. I think it's a good way to do it. I think it's a good way to make it part of the 50th anniversary of the club, and everyone remembers when Henrik Sedin became captain and how awesome that ceremony was. And I think that's just what they're trying to replicate here. And it would have been nicer had they started the season at home and not had these 2 road games to get through. But I do think that launching the season at home, naming a captain, launching the 50th anniversary while naming the new captain when this that's going to hopefully lead this new young core forward and into competitiveness for the next few years, I think is a very good PR move, and it should be really fun to watch come Wednesday.
Yeah, I think if you weren't going to name a captain during the offseason or at some point before the season starts, this would be the way to do it. I agree with Sean. It's just kind of unfortunate that the schedule didn't allow them to have their first game at home like the Maple Leafs did, and with naming John Tavares. But coincidentally, I believe it was LA that the Canucks were playing when Henrik Sedin was named the captain way back in the day. So, and I do remember that quite well. And, yeah, as Travis Green said, special moment. We want the fans to be part of it. So I think they're doing it the right way. It's just too bad there's really no anticipation as far as who. This has been going on for so long now. It's well, if it's not Bo Horvat, holy moly.
Well, how is it? It's pretty obvious. I think as I said, I think it's worst kept secret. I think it's pretty obvious it will be Bo Horvat. They have named the assistants, basically. They named the leadership core. So we kind of have narrowed it down to 4. But I think anyone that is following the Canucks, Heidi, let's try this way. Heidi, who do you think is going to be the Canucks captain?
Louis Eriksson.
Okay. Okay.
No for Brandon Sutter.
No, I think I said Louis Eriksson the other day in a conversation with probably with Sean and Chris or something like that. Just that's the only reason you guys are keeping him around.
Yes, exactly.
And honestly, I just thought it would be funny, but no, of course, as you said, you guys know who it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be him. And yeah, I agree on this whole point that you need to do this at home in front of your fans and in your own barn and all that stuff. So it sucks that they've had to draw it out a little bit, but that's just the way it works sometimes with the schedule. So
yeah, that is the way. Can we applaud the Roberto Luongo though? With his social media, the best social media the best Twitter in the game right now, and just I absolutely loved what he did and how he did that. That was absolutely phenomenal. And
that was well done. That wasn't just a cheap Photoshop job. That was high quality Photoshop.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
He must have had his people work on something quick.
I think there's a little bit of a skepticism in me, but I still think it's fantastic the way it played out. Was the Canucks social media were like, okay, maybe we could do this and then give an opening for Louis, because it really was as much as we love Louis, that is a bit of a quote, a little bit of a black mark. Because did you notice who else was former captain was missing out of that picture?
Yes, Mark Messier was not on that list. Yep. And
so I think they definitely just chose I would say the first captain, Smeal, who led them to the cup final in the 80s. Then you have Linden from '94. Naslund is someone who's very very well respected in the Canucks organization for what he did in the West Coast Express days, and then you got Henrik Sedin. So they basically had the all the generation, the four different sort of the five different generations of Canucks captains that really resonated with the fan base. And as much as we love Louis, I think everyone can say that was a 1 year experiment did not work.
Yeah, it was a good effort. It was an interesting idea, but yeah, it just didn't. It didn't work. But that led to that. And one future conversation I do want to have, because I thought Brian Burke had some interesting comments about Mark Messier's captaincy here, and his perspective on it is probably very different than everybody else in Canucks world of how that ended up. So one day we'll dig into that conversation a little bit at another time. But the Canucks opened their season on Wednesday. They played the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton, and a hard-fought game. But the Oilers took it 3-2. I'm going to start with the outsider here, or the non-Canuck watcher here. Heidi, were you impressed with the Canucks, or?
I only watched, I think I watched about half the game. I was really tired. I started a new job this week, so I was just done at the end of the night. I was really excited for hockey to start, but I honestly was so tired halfway through that game that I just shut it off and went to bed. But I thought the Canucks looked fine. And I'll probably bring this up again when we talk a little bit about the Flames in Colorado game. That first game is almost still sort of like a preseason game where you notice lines are still being kind of working on their chemistry, and pucks are still bouncing, and things are kind of oddly back and forth and stuff. But I thought the Canucks looked decent, but I thought the Oilers looked decent at times too. So it was kind of very meh about both teams.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too, Heidi. I think that it had a bit of a rusty look, like it was still the preseason for a few guys, and there were stretches of the game that just didn't offer much excitement. I don't know. I would say the Canucks played okay. Okay is not usually going to cut it though. So we'll see how they bounce back here tonight against the Flames. But the sloppy play, it just kept aggravating me the whole time. And then finally in the third period, it did come back to bite them. Turn the puck over. McDavid gets sent in with room, and once he starts winding it up and has a lane to the net, that's trouble.
Yeah, I think the Canucks had you're going through that stretch wherever for home openers when you've got the home opener ceremony, and when it's not yours, teams tend to have issues coming out of the gate, and that's what it seemed what the Canucks had. They didn't seem to have the legs for the first 10 minutes of the game, but once they did, I felt that they controlled the play over the Oilers for the most part, and the stats sort of show that. And when I felt that they deserved a better outcome, but it was sloppy, and it didn't. It needs to be better, especially the Pettersson line. The Horvat line was just dominant, and if you look at the stats and their Corsi percentage and all that, they were dominant when they were on the line on the ice. They were in the Oilers zone, creating offensive chances more often than not. While the rest of the team, I think, was either pretty even or below that 50% Corsi percentage there. So I think if you look at that, there's definitely some positives to take out of it, but there needs to be some more consistency, some tightening up on decision making and passes, and then I think the Canucks should be looking a little bit better. One thing I do want to say is Quinn Hughes is going to be so much fun to watch this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was times where walking the line, or just whenever he has a little bit of room just to work it and spin around and create time for himself to make a decision to pass the puck, shoot the puck, or skate with it. he is going to create a lot of problems for opposing teams and a lot of offensive chances for the Canucks. I cannot wait for the other 81 games to watch him.
Yeah, I mean, there was just no way you could not notice the guy out there. I mean, Travis Green played heavily, and he was a presence almost every time he was out there. One little concern for me, though, is his size. I mean, he'll start to figure it out as time goes along here, but I mean, there was one occasion I think Draisaitl just swatted him aside, basically, and went past him. So that was just one thing for me that was a little bit of okay, I hope that changes in a hurry, but he'll get it figured out. He'll bulk up eventually, and it'll be that much better. And then on the other end of the scale, you got Tyler Myers out there, who I was happy with his game, and it just amazes me how huge that guy is. Wow.
Yeah, we've quite.
But with Quinn Hughes, I think he just needs to learn what he can and can't do.
Yeah,
because he's never going to be big. He's never going to be able to outmuscle someone. He just needs to be smart and use his stick as a quote unquote weapon to disengage players from pucks as opposed to his body.
I think even as the game went on, we saw evidence of that adjustment from him as well.
Yeah, he is a smart player. He'll figure it out quick.
Yeah, and Travis Green started to play him more and more as the game went on. And there was that one shift late in the first where it was Pettersson and Hughes and Besser completely dominated and hemmed the Oilers in the zone. My big, and I mean, no one is going to blame Hughes on the McDavid goal because that was a Brandon Sutter, that was clearly Brandon Sutter's error, which we'll get to. But my two things that I was left taken away that was a bit of an interesting concern is, and this will relate a little bit to the Flames here in a little bit here too, by the way, Heidi. But Zach Kassian was running over a lot of Canuck players, and I did not see, I didn't think that number 7-9 played was very visible. I thought he was okay at times, but I didn't think he made his physical presence felt. And to me, the other thing that I kind of came away with a little bit of a concern here, I think the fourth line and the third line, I thought the third and fourth lines had a bit of a struggle, and I'm assuming we're going to see Adam Gaudette tonight. I think us in class were all like there's no reason to have this guy on the bench, but I kind of started to think about it a little bit. Didn't Brock Besser not play the first game too?
2 games.
The first 2 games. That's right. So I'm not sure. I think I would suspect. We're waiting to see the lineups here, but I suspect Adam Gaudette is going to play it. But the bottom 2 lines, I think, were a bit of a concern to me.
Well, yeah, it looks like the top 2 lines are staying the same. The third line is now going to be Josh Levo, Adam Gaudette, and Jake Virtanen. I really like Josh Levo on Wednesday. I thought he showed some tenacity that I think he didn't show much last year, at least enough of. And he was the one player on that third line that I was really impressed with. I felt the third line was okay, other than them being considering they started. I read the stats wrong right after the game, but when looking back at it, they did not start a single shift in the offensive zone. They were either changes on the fly or defensive zone faceoffs. So when you do that, you're already at a bit of a disadvantage, and you're not necessarily going to be able to control the play nearly as much as a line that starts the majority of their shifts in the offensive zone.
Yeah.
So as a line, they weren't overly horrible on controlling the play. They were, I think there was pretty much a saw-off, but the Canucks need that third line to be able to have games where they can be a positive on the puck control side of things as opposed to a negative. And bringing Adam Gaudette in, playing him with a Josh Levo, who I think looks like he's going to be someone who the Canucks are going to be using a lot more than last year, and looks better than last year. And then hopefully get something out of Jake Virtanen would be really nice. And I think that line could be a line that could cause some problems for teams when they're on. I think it's going to be. I think it could be a very inconsistent line, but at this point, I think the Canucks need to put that line together and just see what they can do and build on it, and see if they can create a third line that can create some more offense, because the bottom six last year got outscored basically at a 2-1 rate. And for the Canucks to be successful this year and to push for a playoff spot or make the playoffs, they need that to be fixed. So I think it's going to be interesting to see that. And then the other thing is Louis Eriksson looks like he's a healthy scratch today. So it's going to be interesting to see see how that plays out throughout the season, because the $6 million man isn't necessarily in the top 12 for the Canucks as forwards this year. And
is it just me, Sean, or did he look like the slowest player on the ice there for the Canucks on Wednesday?
Well, that's because Milan Lucic wasn't on the Oilers anymore. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just like that. That's what stood out to me. Like it's just like that the game is passing him by. Like all of a sudden now.
All of a sudden, no, he's been dragging butt for a while now. He hasn't really looked fast or anything for a couple seasons now, and that was one of the biggest issues last year. He just did not look like he could keep up, and it almost looks like he's like moping about it and not necessarily even putting the effort in. So if he's sitting, then that's fine by me, as long as the Canucks can find a way to make things work. And the only issue now is he's still a decent penalty killer. So it looks like they're going to try Jake Virtanen in that role for tonight and see how that goes.
Not to get too sidetracked, Kevin, on the roster construction here, but obviously people were not that thrilled about Sven Berchi being waived and sent down and Louis Eriksson staying, but kind of looks to me like the Canucks are giving this one last chance with Eriksson to fix it and be useful. I mean, they are paying him a lot of money. It's you do get some cap relief if he gets buried in the minors, but not a lot of cap relief. So the leash has to be short, though, I would think. And as Sean's been alluding to, how long before he is no longer healthy scratch and is in fact just off the roster altogether.
But here, I'm still. No one has answered my question, Tyler. What does Sven Berchi do if he's not scoring? Like, what is the true value of Sven Berchi if he is not scoring and not a top six forward? He's not a bottom six forward.
He's not doing anything.
He's not, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with Sven Berchi and the Canucks roster construction is that Jim Benning alluded to this multiple times in lead up to through camp and through preseason and lead up to the start of the season, was they're looking to have a more of a top 9 instead of a top 6, and they want that third line to be able to score. So I think Sven Berchi, there's still a chance for him to come back up, be part of that third line. Say it's a Berchi, Gaudette, Levo line. That line has potential to be a very good scoring third line. The issue with that is then you have to make sure that you can put the Bo Horvat line up against top lines and they can be positive on puck possession. You can put your fourth line out there and not be afraid that they're just going to get buried and trapped in their own zone. So that's the biggest issue right now with Sven Berchi, is the Canucks need to find whether or not they can what that third line looks like to be that scoring line. And right now it looks like they're going for something a little more grittier with Levo and Virtanen on the wings, but I still think that there's a potential for Berchi to come back, and especially if they decide to move on from Eriksson. Bring Sven back up. Let him be sort of like that 12, 13 forward and slide in when they need a little a little more creativity on that third line versus grit. I wouldn't play him in versus the Flames, especially with the Flames third line of Lucic and Bennett and I can't remember who the third
Ryan. So Ryan and the Ryan and the two gritty wingers, I think that's going to be a tough line to handle if you don't have gritty wingers to handle back to throw at them on the way back. So I don't mind it, but I think Berchi does have a chance to come back up and still be an impact player.
Sure, well, we know how it is with injuries with the Canucks. I mean, a chance to come back up. I mean, I think it's inevitable he's going to come back up at some point.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I'm going to be really interested in is when we get Corey Hergon on, and he's been tweeting about this already, is how is this going to affect Utica in the terms of the players that need the development? So I do think that my belief is I think Benning wants a solution quicker, sooner rather than later. I think for the entire organization, this needs to be solved sooner rather than later. But especially for development, and I do see Berchi coming up here, but I think he's going to need to add to his game. I'm with you, but I think he is going to need to add to his game a little bit more too. Before we get into the Flames here, and I'm going to have I have a hot take coming. Warning you, Heidi, hot take is coming.
I love hot takes.
Okay, I have one. This is my observation of our friends, the Edmonton Oilers. If 97 and 29 are injured at any length or point, I am legitimately concerned if this Oiler team can actually win a game. I think that Mike Smith was okay, Mike Smith was solid, and I don't think that. I'm sorry, Mr. Stauffer, with all due respect, Mike Smith should not be your best puck-handling defenseman. I thought the Canucks could have done a little bit better in terms of putting pressure on Mike Smith. But this team, they are already how quick did Dave Tippett put McDavid and Draisaitl together and needing to keep it? And I know that there's a part of them that wants to separate it, but without 97 and 29, this team is not a good team. Am I blind?
I just want to say on that, Kevin, it's only one game, but Draisaitl looked really good.
He did. I will totally agree with you.
On his own, wow, he was by far the best player for them, and a good coaching move by Tippett to put the two of them together when there was a chance there to go for it and grab the lead. But that looked good. They had some more balance to their lineup, and the question now is, is Tippett going to be able to resist the temptation to stick them together because of the offensive fireworks that, we know is possible with those two playing together? We'll see.
What did you guys think?
I think the Oilers lines are going to be an absolute blender this year. I think you're going to see times where they do stick McDavid and Draisaitl together, but I think they'll be I think for the majority of the time they'll be separated because I think Tippett understands that they need to have depth in the lineup to be a little more successful than just to ride them on the top line like Hitchcock did last year.
Yeah, and McClellan before that at times as well. That's what I'm curious about. I don't know this. There's no scuttlebutt out there. It's just something that I sense from some watching their games and the coverage around the Oilers. But is there some kind of internal pressure there to put them together? Because it is awfully exciting for Oilers fans to watch those two go to work out there. But I just don't think for lineup balance that's the way to go.
Do they have the wingers without McDavid or Draisaitl to actually produce offense?
Probably not consistently.
No.
I don't think you're if you lose someone like McDavid, that's not maybe somebody will step up, but I don't think that any of that would be lasting at all. So in general, Kevin, your take, I don't even think that's that spicy of a take, really, because...
Oh, no, my hot take's on the Flames. So, the hotter, spicier take.
Let's just put it this way. Thomas Yurko got injured just before the season opener versus the Canucks. and that was a major issue for the Oilers. Thomas Yurko did not play a single game in NHL last year. That says everything.
Yeah,
because he was slotted to be on McDavid's wing.
Mm. Mm. And then on the back end, Adam Larson's gone on LTIR now after a shot block. Was it Hughes that hit him? I think it was.
Yeah,
Hughes.
it was a Quinn Hughes shot.
Yeah. So that's just depleted their defense a whole lot more. Just a comment on the Oilers' defense. One of the things I thought compared to last couple of years, it seems like their gap control was a lot better. They weren't giving the Canucks as much space and as many lanes for passing as we've become accustomed to seeing over the last little while.
That's true. And James Neal actually had 2 offensive chances, which I checked the records. That was double than what he had the entire year last year. So that was good. That was also funny. I don't know why no one's laughing, but I thought that was really funny.
I honestly never even noticed Neil out there really. I was kind of watching for him kind of the same way I was watching Mike Smith, and it's I barely noticed James Neal.
I thought he was noticeable. I thought at times he was noticeable.
I also kind of started when he was playing last year in Calgary, kind of stopping, kind of noticing him too, because maybe it was just oh yeah, okay, he's not really going to do anything fun anymore. So maybe that could just be it too.
Maybe. I don't know. So the opponents, the Canucks opponents, the Calgary Flames, their home opener tonight. They're wearing their red retro jerseys, I believe. But they came off. They have lost basically 5 straight games against the Colorado Avalanche. This is probably the first game that is a non-Avalanche related game in a pretty long time, other than the preseason stuff, and that doesn't really matter. But they valiant fight, but not a win against the Colorado Avalanche. What did you think, Heidi?
Well, I was live tweeting some of this stuff, and I thought the game was insane in the weirdest ways. For one thing, I will give Colorado applause, because they looked Colorado looked good for it being the first game of their regular season. I don't know how they did in preseason or anything like that, but if that was them in their end of preseason form, they're gonna be scary this year, because their passes look good and their players looked good. So and then I kind of thought it was insane in the sense too that there was lots of back and forth and crazy saves being made on each end, and someone would score and then someone else would score. It was almost at times it almost looked like a playoff game, except for penalties were being handed out left, right, and center. So it was definitely a way more entertaining game than I would say that the Canucks and Oilers game was. But and then just kind of my takes on the Flames side of it. The puck control was atrocious most of the time. So they need to definitely work on that. I was surprised to actually see, I'm pretty critical of Oliver Kylington. He actually looked pretty good, and even if he made a mistake, he was able to kind of back up and kind of make up for it. There was some nice goals and stuff, but Flames definitely need to step it up.
Sean, Tyler, what?
That game kind of reminded me a lot of the games in April. I thought that the Flames had their chances, but I felt for the most part Colorado controlled the play until the end of the game when the Flames were pushing, and they looked faster. Colorado still looked a lot faster than the Flames, and the McKinnon and Rantanen duo was again very dominant. And then they were showing their new pieces, and Jonas Donskoy and Kadri and Nichushkin. They've added a lot of depth, and I think they're going to be a very good team and a team to follow and watch this season, because I think they look like they've got the depth to be a team that could win the Central Division, which is a very tough division. I felt the Flames, as Heidi said, I felt like they were sloppy as well, just like the Canucks and Oilers. It's just that there was a little more excitement to the game. There was a lot more skill. The skill players were on display more in the Flames and Avs game versus the Oilers and Canucks game, and that just made it a lot more entertaining to watch. But the Flames need to figure out how to play against these faster teams. I think they just don't have the speed to keep up with them, and I don't know if they really did anything to change that over the summer.
I, being in BC without the out-of-market package, was unable to watch the game. Regional restrictions in effect there, but just some general comments on it. Like, if the Flames' speed versus the Avalanche speed is still an issue, that's a bit of a concern. It's only one game, but Colorado, I think, is going to really raise some eyebrows this year with the talent they have assembled there, and you'd hope for a pretty feisty game. A playoff matchup the season prior. We had Lucic well engaged there as well on the one particular play, coming to the defense of one of his teammates that was hit from behind. So, I think from a Flames perspective, you got to be happy with the compete level there, but they got work to do to keep up with the likes of Colorado.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely enamored with the Flames off season. I've already made that pretty clear. That I think overall they didn't have a great off season, and I think that was on display. But as I think there's a lot of, it feels to me like a lot of optimism in Calgary, and I'm not there with it, but I know that it feels like a lot of people are optimistic we're going to see. But let's get into this. So last year when the Canucks played the Oilers, Eric Gudbranson, a Villars defenseman, whacked Dylan Dubé, which led to Travis Hamonic getting into a bit of a scuffle a little bit later. Similarly enough, Nikita Zadorov hit Czarnik, and Milan Lucic made his presence known and got to it with Zadorov. First of all, I think let's go back here, because Heidi had an issue with something that I said, and which is totally fair, by the way. But let's go to that. Were we okay with the hit?
I don't think it was once I watched it, after I saw that Czarnik maybe turned and he shouldn't have. But I think when you're a little player, and because Czarnik is a little dude, if you don't know much about him, and I feel like sometimes your reaction is to probably just turn your body, and because it's gonna happen when there's a guy that big coming after you. So the hit was I think the hit might have looked worse on slow motion than maybe it actually was. Czarnik seems to be okay. He was out at optional practice last night or yesterday. He's not playing tonight, but I think that's fine. Peters is going to give him a time to rest or whatever. And then by the action by Lucic, just to go after him, Lucic is here to stand up for, one of Lucic's things, and maybe that his main role here is to do stuff like stand up for his teammates. So, and if Lucic wouldn't have done anything there, we would have heard about that just as much as if he, hadn't done it. So either way, there was going to be an issue with it, right? So what Kevin was alluding to is that Kevin was throwing out the idea of, should Lucic be suspended? Now, maybe because Kevin's also living outside of Calgary, but because of the people I was following on Twitter, I was not seeing any of this, the talk being about Lucic being suspended for going after the Colorado player. I don't think it was suspendable. Obviously, I think that that I don't know. I honestly would have thought that maybe that guy would have fought him, but I guess he didn't. And maybe Lucic went a little bit too far, but I don't think it was suspendable or that terrible. He was just standing up for his teammate, and honestly, like, good for him.
All right, John.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the hit because it looked like a high hit to me. I mean, it looked like the arms came up trying to drive the upper body head area into the boards. It wasn't probably not as bad as it looks again on slow motion. Camera angles can vary in terms of how severe a hit looks. But I just didn't like it. It was in that danger area and it was a bit high. And then as far as Lucic, I mean, he got 2, 5, and a 10, I think, on the play. So he was, he's pretty severely disciplined in that regard. I wasn't seeing much in terms of people demanding suspension there. I mean, the one sucker punch was pretty severe, but then again, Zadorov is just, he started the thing. He made the dirty hit there, and then, if you get tangled up with Lucic, you should be fighting back, or you're gonna get suckered like that.
Yeah, my only issue is that I felt like from my non-referee uneducated position was I felt that just the calls. I didn't think that Zadorov should have gotten a fighting major at that point because it literally felt like it's Lucic doing everything, and I would have been. I felt that it should have been 2 roughing for unsportsmanlike, or like a double minor for roughing and a misconduct for Lucic, and then just 2 for boarding.
Yeah.
For Zadorov.
Yeah, I would like to see a boarding call there too.
Pardon?
I would like to see a boarding call for Zadorov, and we mentioned for Lucic.
I thought that's what I thought. They both got 2 and 5, and because Lucic shot the instigator 10 minutes after.
Yeah, as far as fighting, that was on player, right? I mean,
exactly, that's my issue. And Lucic is just being Lucic again, like where he sees red and he doesn't really sort of go through the quote unquote code to engage that fight. He just threw a sucker punch at Zadorov, who I don't think was expecting that to escalate to a fight level. And that's what that happened there. And then once that happened, I think, what is going on? I think he was a little confused, and that's why he didn't drop, because he's not necessarily a fighter. If that was, say, if that was, say, like a good Branson that had made that hit, I think he would have been ready, and he would have been ready to go, and mitts dropped, and they would have been going toe-to-toe there for a fight. But Zadorov is necessarily a fighter, so I don't think he was really expecting Lucic to escalate that the way he did. So I think he should have expected it, but I don't think he did, and that's why he never really engaged Lucic more into that fight. So no, I don't think Lucic should have been suspended or anything, but I do think that I think they calling it a fight was wrong. Was just an easy way to keep it as even as possible without for the penalties. But then they ended up calling a really soft sort of makeup call, like literally 30 seconds later. So
yeah, and that just aggravates people to no end when you start seeing that.
Yeah. That whole game, like, there were some very odd reffing calls and stuff the entire game. So yeah, I totally forgot that they gave the Colorado player like a fighting penalty. Like, yeah, that was definitely not a fight.
I didn't hear it on Twitter, but I think maybe when I was waking up in the morning and I was a little groggy and I heard some things, and I'm like when I thought about it, I thought the wording is, I think some people were expecting a little bit more consequences. So I do hear what you're saying there, but I do like that. His art form isn't great, his skating isn't great, but I do think that I think that Lucic, it seems to me, is starting to get at least that's a sign of investment. Hearing from the teammates, everybody, they were really at least happy that he stepped in, and so that was good. And I think that that's going to be a way that he can contribute there. So that all is good in terms of standing up for a teammate. And yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I'm agreeing. It's not necessarily suspendable. Now, Here's my hot take. So I'm going to go through the lines here. It's Monahan, Gaudreau, and Lindholm. Backlund, Tkachuk, and Frolik. Ryan, Lucic, Bennett is back together. Jankowski, Mangiapane, and Tobias Reeder will be making his debut. Defense, Brody, Giordano, Hamonic, Hanifin, Anderson, Shillington, and Rittich in goal. I think Derek Ryan, at some point this year, is going to be the number 2 center. I think this guy is really underrated. I think he was that line of Ryan and Mangiapane and Hathaway for the second half of the year was probably the Flames' best line. I think he continues to grow. I think Bill Peters really likes him, and I think he's starting to be better than Backlund. I'm waiting for Heidi to tell me to shut up.
Well, I feel like I can't really say yes or no on that end because it's only been one regular season game this year, so that's tough to say. Like, I don't know if he'll surpass Backlund because Backlund's good too. Like, maybe the whole idea that maybe those two will fight for kind of like second, third, but then are you saying that maybe you would put Backlund on the third line?
Yeah,
or?
I would like to see. I would be interested actually in a Ryan Tkachuk combination. I think that they would work well together. And I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing something like Ryan Tkachuk and Bennett on the second line, and then Backlund, Lucic, and Frolik. I'm having trouble with Frolik in the top 6. I don't think he's a top 6 guy anymore. I think Frolik is a good player, but I think he's top 9, not top 6 to me. And I think Bennett also needs to take a step up. So I think that's where I want to see an adjustment. And I don't think it's that hot of a take, but I thought I would tease you that it was a hot take.
That's a hotter take than I think your last one, but you're right. Like, Ryan is probably. I was reading something that was saying that Backlund was like an underrated player. I think Ryan is probably one of the most underrated players on the Flames. Like, he is, like, I really like watching him play. So, yeah, but yeah, we'll see. Like, I would like to see a little bit of a shakeup on that second line. I don't like it. It's nice when it works, but at the same time, it doesn't always work. And I don't know if it's Backlund on that line. I don't know if it's Frolik that's on that line. It just doesn't always seem to be working. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if something happens with a line juggle on the centers there.
Well, if you look at the points from last year, Backlund had 47 points in 77 games, and Ryan had 38 points in 81 games. And Backlund was playing very
to the corner.
Sorry, go ahead.
Most of the time with Matthew Tkachuk, and he had an absolutely stellar year. So I do wonder if that might be something they look at if they feel that second line is not producing the way they want later on in the season. Because I think the Flames do need to do something to shake things up. Because they, as much as they're still a strong team, I think Vegas is definitely the class of the Pacific, and then both San Jose and Calgary are, I would say, a step above the clump in the middle. But there's nothing to say that anyone of Vancouver or Arizona specifically could find a way to surprise, and one of those teams could drop down. There is question marks. I still don't know if the Flames defense is fast enough, especially that Hamonic Hanifin pairing. That pairing got absolutely lit up by the Avalanche in the playoffs, and I don't know how you can go into the season and put them back together and think that you're going to get a better result. So I think that there's definitely some question marks, but I think if they can find a way to make that second line take even just a half step forwards and become a little more dangerous, I think that helps them immensely. And and we'll see if that. I'll be interested to see if they give that a shot.
Tyler, anything to add there?
I mean, just as a general comment on the Flames, I mean, they won first place in the division last year. I mean, I still see them as for sure a playoff team, but a drop off is not going to be a surprise to me. And Kevin, you talked about not being that jazzed about the off season. I mean, I think that's why. I mean, you look around, there's what seems to be improvement for a lot of other teams, the Canucks, Arizona. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of improvement for Edmonton, but they got a new coach and general manager, and that may make things better there. I'm not so sold on San Jose necessarily here either. I mean, they're a great team, but I don't see them as a lock myself.
I have them.
It's just a hunch.
I'm higher on them than everybody else. I have them as second. I have the Flames finishing third. I think everybody else has that a little bit differently. So, but yeah, it's going to be it's interesting. Yeah, to see what will happen there. And tonight will be very interesting. I'm also going to be curious how the podcast hockey Twitter is going to be handled by Heidi and Sean and Chris, as they will be looking after that. So that will be amusing if we hear one from Heidi and one from Sean and one from Chris. And Heidi is expecting us to sign these tweets. So
well, no, that's Chris that's expecting.
Oh, Chris is expecting that. That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, that was Chris. That was all over the whole. We have to sign tweets. Although maybe it would be funny to just the three of us can just tweet things, and then you just have to decide who might be tweeting it. It'll be a game.
So what is the penalty for not signing a tweet? Is there 1,000 lashes with a wet noodle, or what's the penalty here?
I told Chris that I was going to start signing my tweets every time I tweeted him, even from my own account that has my name on it. just to see if it would annoy him enough.
This is going to be out of hand by the first intermission.
Yeah.
No, I honestly we this got brought up in our chat, but I don't actually think that the three of us will be on Twitter as much as you think. I think we'll all be watching. I'm pretty good about not having my phone out during the game, maybe during intermission or something, but
yeah, you guys are. I mean, it's a Saturday night at the Saddle Dome. Watch the game.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a live game, and like I said, when we were having the goals for the season, watch more games without being distracted by devices and Twitter and social media. And if I'm at a game, I'm gonna spend a lot of it. When I go to live games, I like to key in on players and watch them for a couple shifts here and there and see how they play. That's literally how I got through the the preseason game that the Flames and Canucks preseason game that I watched, that the Flames dominated for 50 minutes of the game, and Canucks couldn't seem to get anything. So I just kept every shift. I'm like, okay, who's out there? Oh, Jet Wu's out there. I'll watch him, see how he plays, and I like doing that. So that's likely what I'll be doing. Plus, I'll be live chirping Heidi and other Flames fans around me, most likely.
Don't get into a fight.
Commercial breaks per period, so you got extra time there to squeeze in some chirps and some tweets. yeah,
I'll probably take some pictures and maybe tweet some pictures out or something.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Visual things are never a bad thing for sure. So that will be interesting in and of itself. So, yeah. In other news, this was not the greatest week and precursor, of course, I'm not going to be tweeting because I have to play. I am doing the play-by-play tonight for the Greater Vancouver Canadians as they are facing the Okanagan Rockets at the Richmond Oval. So that's what I will be doing. So I'm not going to be able to tweet too much during the game myself. But this was not a great week for play-by-play announcers, as I pull this up.
Holds up for a hit, give him that little shot in the lower back and Pollock. Yeah, that looks self-induced, didn't it? Yeah, has a little bit of bad hockey karma.
Yeah, that was one, and then there is another one, but Jim Houston Well-respected broadcaster, also got into a little bit of trouble with his comments around Austin Matthews and calling it his disorderly conduct a little bit of a problem, comparing it to Patrick Kane and what happened in his incident and what happened there. Although the intentions were good, the delivery was not. And there was one other one as well. The Pat Foley referred to one of the Philadelphia Flyers player as sounds like a shortstop. It's tough to be a play-by-play guy. I've only, at the experience of 4 or 5 games, so I can't really comment from that in terms of that. But how, as a listener, how are you feeling about this? I think the first thing is there's a different. I think the first thing I do want to say is I think that in terms of human beings and people, there is a clear difference between Jack Edwards and Jim Houston. Generally, I will start there, but we'll go on.
I give a lot of the play-by-play and color commentary a little bit more leeway than a lot of people do, because I trying to constantly talk and make sense and be entertaining, that's tough. And the odd mistake here and there, or the odd slip up here and there, I think is expected. And I don't necessarily feel the need to jump on the bandwagon of bashing them every time they make a mistake. And I think that's probably what the Jim Houston one was. It was a poorly worded attempt at sort of moving on from the Austin Matthews issue. But in terms of Jack Edwards, he's shown repeatedly that he's willing to make very controversial comments and make light of incidences that shouldn't be made light of, and trying to just be too much of a homer. And I think that's shown through really well, really, really, really poorly on with that comment with Roman Polak. I think that it really shows the type of person that he is when he gets emotional. And I think that's the other thing, is I think people do need to realize that these guys do take their craft seriously and understand what their shtick is. And I think that he understands that. But he needs to understand that there's a time and a place to make these comments, and there's a time and a place where they're not right, and there's comments that shouldn't be made at all. I think we went through this a little bit with Eric Francis last year. When he tried to make a joke and make light of the Elias Pettersson hit when he got slammed by Mike Matheson. I think he needs to. I think it just, but it was a bad joke or a bad comment, and he needs to apologize for it and see the broadcaster for the NSE, I can't remember. But the broadcaster for the Bruins needs to hold him accountable for that, because that is completely unacceptable to say that is to make that comment about someone getting seriously injured.
Just to expand on what Sean's talked about, I mean, I agree with all that. Jack Edwards, I'll start with Jack, I guess. I'm sure Bruins fans and NESN and the Bruins organization, they love that there is the emotion and the passion from their play-by-play voice. But there's a difference between, being a play-by-play guy and then morphing into a fan. And he has these moments where he slips into fan mode, and then he starts saying really regrettable things. And if he could just cut that out, it'd be a much more tolerable broadcast. But this has been going on and on and on forever. And for me, the fact that it continues to happen, I think says something about the Bruins organization. I mean, I think that they continue to tolerate this. It says something, I think.
Yeah, and let's not forget, and this is not Jack Edwards related, but this is Bruins organization related and Bruins Boston radio related. There was, when the Bruins were playing the Carolina Hurricanes, it was the Boston Bruins morning show, and I don't even want to care about to remember the name, but they invited the guy, reporter from the Carolina Hurricanes on, and they hung up on him because of his southern accent, and they could not tolerate the southern accent being part of the and talking hockey. So there's a bit of a history of douchebaggery from Boston Bruins broadcasting. Am I allowed to say douchebaggery on a podcast?
Sure.
Whatever, sure. I just did. But it is douchebaggery. I'm not going to refrain back from that, so to be fair. Heidi, what do you think?
I kind of just echo what everyone had to say. Like, I at first was like, Jack Edwards, I don't really know that name, but as soon as I started hearing more about, like, oh, he said this, I was like, oh, right, okay. I have heard little rumblings from this guy before, so, yeah, kind of like, I don't have very much to add. Like, obviously, if you're somebody who keeps making comments like that, like, something needs to happen. The thing with Jim Houston, like, I was actually listening, and I, like, heard it, but, like, it didn't, like, occur to me, and then, like, I saw someone tweet it out again, and I was like, is that what he actually said? And then it, like, clicked in my brain, and I was like, oh, that's not good, and it was just a thing that incident is still kind of clear in everyone's mind, so...
I just don't know why Jim had to bring it up. That's kind of the thing, too. It's like, as much as, like, I don't want this Austin Matthews thing getting swept under the rug, like, it was just not the time to bring it up. But as Sean said, like, sometimes, like, these guys are human, and sometimes when you're trying to make your broadcast interesting and colorful and make it that sometimes you got to add these things, and things slip out of your mouth before you really think about it and think about the consequences. So I think in his case, maybe, like, okay, if he doesn't have the reputation of doing it all the time, like, okay, we'll give him the pass. But someone like Jack Edwards, who has an actual reputation for it, like, that is maybe a whole another story. Heidi, I think that's well put there, Heidi. The other thing is we don't really know what goes on behind the scenes with these broadcasts in terms of how they plan. I mean, was there a plan for them to specifically bring it up as this kind of, like, sidebar part of this game, and Matthews and the whole, like, he wasn't picked as the captain. Like, who knows what the thinking is there with the production team at Sportsnet. So I don't want to, like, completely blame Jim, but, as far as wording and execution, that's on him. It wasn't very good. To me, I think with the amount of flack that Sportsnet's under, I think the responsible thing to do would be to have Jim at some point in the broadcast tonight address his comments and be done with it.
Heidi, this specifically, I'm going to ask this question to you because the tweets that I saw were around the fact that Houston's comments were indicative of the hockey toxic culture around, if you solve your problems by scoring goals. You've solved your problems by just being a better hockey player, and everything else is fine. What do you think of that?
I don't think that is true. Like, hockey players are also human, so you need to judge them the same way you would judge a human for doing the same action, right? Like, can't use this excuse of them just being hockey players and all that stuff, and that they're going to make up for it by being more entertaining or scoring a bunch of points or doing all of that stuff. So that's kind of my take on that side of the argument.
Because to me, not to get super sidetracked here, I did tweet this out. I found it a little bit awkward to watch Austin Matthews on Wednesday.
Yeah, I actually did too. Totally. Like, I have, like, really, like, mixed feelings about Austin Matthews too. And, like, just sorry, Kevin, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. I was actually, maybe Sean can speak to this too. Like, I felt, so we had our Pig and Duke draft on Monday, and I could swear that, like, nobody seemed to want to take Austin Matthews in our draft until, like, later on. And I don't know if it was just me just, like, reading into something far too much, but yeah, just I do not feel the same about him anymore. I know that.
Yeah, I can understand when the idea that you just, as long as you just keep on sort of going and doing what you do, and things will fix itself. But he needs to. That's not really the case in situations like this, and I don't know what the thing was with our draft, and because he did go later than I thought he should have, and if you were just to look at the points, but I don't know why. There's no way to really tell unless we all get back together and talk about it. But I think. Their hockey definitely does have a little bit, like all sports do, actually. All sports have this idea where if you do something wrong but you don't want to hurt the team. So part of what irked me about his apology was that how he put the team first instead of the victim first. So I think there's a lot of that, and I think that's what sort of played off into Jim Houston's comments, where he was just like, "Oh, as long as he just keeps going on and doing that with his teammates and scoring and producing, then people will forget." And I do think that there is a little bit of truth to it, even though it is not something that is ideal.
Well, Sportsnet has already pointed out that Austin Matthews is one of the top goal scorers in October. So.
No, you're not keen on that stat.
That is ridiculous. That is utterly stupid. That is
because that's what you really want to be known as in the NHL, is Mr. October.
Yeah, exactly. But
this isn't baseball.
Yeah. It's fine to be Mr. October in baseball, but in hockey, it's probably not the best. And I'm going to go back to we haven't heard from Tyler on this, but I'm going to go back to this. I think it's I think either the Leafs or the NHL, I don't think it would have been unreasonable. I'm not asking this guy to be banned for the entire season, but I do think a suspension was worthy here. And I don't know about, maybe there's again, we talked about this with the PA, but you know, I think the fact that I think a suspension even by the team for one game would have sent a message. And I'm feeling a bit like, okay, we're just going to move on, and Austin Matthews is awesome. And I'm not feeling that this is a good message, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm too sensitive. I don't know. I am too sensitive.
It makes you wonder if there's this scuttlebutt out there about friction between Matthews and Babcock, and is Matthews going to stay beyond the end of his contract? And I mean, it makes you wonder if the organization just doesn't want to create more friction with Austin Matthews. It's kind of the weak position to take, but that's how it comes across to me.
Yeah, I
think it's also tough to really do anything about these situations until there is some sort of legal precedent in terms of whether or not he actually gets convicted of these charges. And I think that's something that unless it's something really egregious, I think that's the way that a lot of these things go with most sports. Until absolutely proven guilty and convicted, they usually don't do anything and any punishment until then, unless it's somewhat written into the bylaws and collective bargaining agreement. So I think there's a little bit of that has to be put in there. I do agree that I think there needs to be some sort of punishment, but I just don't know if they can really do anything until he's officially convicted of it or what.
That's fair. And just to clarify my Jack Edwards and Jim Houston comparison, like in terms of human beings, I feel like Jim Houston is generally a better human being. I will always remember Jim Houston from after the day after the Humboldt Broncos tragedy, and the quote that kind of just still sings in my head is that they say you can take refuge in this game, and let's see and let's try. So I do think that Jim Houston has generally, in my opinion, has handled the moment very strongly. This was not his best moment. It was not a good comment. But and I'll tell you this from 5 play-by-play games, to try to develop content while you're seeing the ice, while you're getting everything together, it is not as easy as a lot of these guys make you think it is. There's a lot of work and a lot of preparation that has to be put in there. So, I'm not excusing Jim Houston. I agree. I think he needs to make an apology, but I also think Jim Houston has had more ups than downs in his career. That I'm not demanding his resignation, but he does. I think everyone will needs to apologize and move forward, and that's the way I see that in my mind. Anyway,
yeah, I would just add to that too, Kevin. On a TV broadcast, I mean, you've got that truck in your ears,
yakking
at you all the time too, which makes even more distraction.
Oh yeah, no, it's not easy. It's if you don't believe me, listen to Mick Foley's story when he was broadcasting on SmackDown, and how he had Vince McMahon literally be yelling in his ear during commentary, and how it just drove him. It's hard. It is not easy to do. Sure, for sure.
Well, I feel for you, Kevin. Back when I lived in Vancouver, I tried my hand at play-by-play, and I found hockey exceptionally hard. I did football as well, which is stop and go, but so many players on the field and so hard to see what's happening. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm not enjoying it. It's not that I'm not enjoying it, but it's just there's adjustments and things like that, and let
me be the colored guy any day. I love being colored guy.
Oh yeah, we'll have to bring you in. Yeah. All right. So to close this off, Heidi, do you have a question for us? Heidi's hot. Is it Heidi's hot question?
It's going to be a question, but I'm going to throw a hot take into my question.
Okay.
I just want to say here, hot take Heidi. Okay, we gotta get that to stick.
Yeah, and
hot take Heidi.
It already kind of sticks. It's already been said in real life a few times, so it'll definitely stick, I think. Okay, so my question is about superstitions. Do you have any superstitions, either around a hockey broadcast or even watching it live at the game? Anything like that. That's what I want to hear about from you guys. I will start it by saying that one of my big superstitions is you don't say shutout until the game is over. I firmly believe if you're going to start, especially if the broadcaster starts saying the word shutout before the shutout happens, the shutout's not going to happen. The other thing is when this is my hot take, I don't like the wave. And I especially don't like the wave when the game seems to be kind of going your way, but you might only be up a point, because I feel like that is also bad luck. So that's my hot take is I don't like the wave.
Well, I think that's very reasonable to take that stance on the wave and on shutouts as well. I don't have particular superstitions watching hockey, although I'm one of those people that I'm okay with talking about shutout when you're watching at home, but if I was in the building, I don't think I'd be bringing up the word shutout if that's still intact. But I'm very superstitious when I play hockey or prepare to referee a hockey game. It is regimented routine. It is the same every time. It is the coffee / energy drink an hour before, a little bit of stretching at home, get to the rink 40 minutes before the game, stretching in the dressing room, putting the gear on a certain way, all of that. The what I do during warm up, if I have any major diversion from that, I feel really thrown off. I'm kind of, I mean, my teammates think I'm nuts about this, but that's what works for me. So I'm kind of crazy about like playing hockey and sticking to the same routine before the game. And refereeing is not as involved, not as much gear, but same thing. The pregame stretch, even waiting for the anthem to be over. I tap my helmet on my knee pads one after the other each time. Put the helmet back on. Stuff like that is. I'm pretty consistent on those things.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily superstitious, but there's definitely sort of routine things that happen. Anthems hat always comes off if I'm watching the game. And I always end up resorting back to the old, what you see a lot of the hockey players do, shuffle back and forth. I do that if I'm even at the game or at home or at the bar. If you watch me do it, I'll do it.
I'm gonna watch out for this now.
Oh yeah, it's just especially when I get into it. Yeah, I'll be shuffling back and forth, and I'm not necessarily superstitious with hockey and watching hockey, but when I played any sort of sport, there's definitely a routine. When you have a routine, I think you just get into a mental spot where you feel better, and if you feel better, you're going to play better. I definitely had a routine sort of similar to Tyler in terms of when I played, of what I did. Left skate on first. It's the one I would say the one thing I do. Another thing is anthem for me. It's anthem. I hate the people who yell right before the end of the anthem, like "Let's go Canucks" or "Let's go Flames." I think that's bad. That's bad juju, and I hate it. So that being said, I would love to see someone put together a mashup of everything that the crowd yells during the anthems, all the lyrics versus whether it's the C at the Dome or True North in Winnipeg. All those, I think that'd be a really cool thing for someone to do. But in terms of going back to the question, yeah, I think it's mostly anthem for me, just because it gets me psyched. It's part of the routine. It's part of the of just getting into the mental mode to play or watch hockey or watch sports. And just don't yell. Go whatever team during the anthem, and just enjoy it. And but yeah, that would be me.
I'm not superstitious about watching a game. I may have been a little bit more superstitious about the playoff games but not for the actual like regular season games. But I'm like Sean and Tyler in terms of I just need to get in my mental zone before I hop on a podcast or I can just pop and get ready, but I do need my mental space to be like really clear. I need to make sure I have things written down. Things like that. I kind of need to know where I'm going. So I wouldn't say I'm superstitious. I would say I try to be more prepared. I don't know if we have actually answered your question, Heidi.
No, you totally did. I totally count the whole routine thing as sort of superstitious too, and I think routines are totally cool. I know with me, if I mess up my routine in the morning, it can ruin my entire day. I was just thinking as you guys were talking, I can name some other random things that I've done with superstitions over with jerseys and stuff. So I have a thing that I will normally. There's only one jersey that I usually wear all season. So right now it's my Kachuk jersey. So I will wash my jersey at the beginning of the season so it's nice and clean to be worn and all that stuff. And if I feel like it's either the Flames are on a losing streak or something like that, then I'll wash it, thinking that maybe it will wash away some bad juju, but like if they're like on like a winning streak or something like that, like I try my hardest not to sweat in that, spill anything on it, anything in that, because I will just like refuse to wash it. There was also a couple of years ago when Dougie Hamilton still played on our team, and I had Dougie Hamilton jersey. The Flames went on like something like I think it was like a 10-game winning streak in around March. And I had just happened to like have worn my Flames jersey, like even like at home watching the game. And I think I went to one of the games and stuff. And the Flames were something on like a 5-game winning streak or something. And I was going to Vegas, and I'd worn my Flames jersey like every day that there was a Flames game. So I took my jersey to Vegas and wore it at least for a couple hours every day that there was a Flames game while I was in Vegas, just to keep that going. So sometimes I have weird superstitions around things like that too. That's fair.
Yeah, everybody's a little different. And now I'm just thinking about is the Deion Sanders quote: "You look good, you play good, you look good, you feel good, you play good." Things. Yeah, that whole quote. That might end the podcast. Which leads us to the end here. So next, okay, Heidi, you are. It is Thanksgiving weekend, and you will not be with us.
My family is here next weekend, so I don't think I'll be able to sneak away on a Saturday to record.
Okay. There's tears in people's eyes. So
I'll see what I can do, but it means I'd have to abandon my family for 2 hours.
That's tough. Yeah, I guess we'll figure that out. But how do we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and all of the social medias at Heidi Amazeballs. HEID Amazeballs.
Sean?
I am Beardy Canucks 03 on Twitter.
Right. Tyler?
And I'm on Twitter at Tnoble, Tnoble.
And let's not forget Chris. You can follow him at Schneid's. You can follow podcast_hockey. Like the Facebook page. The website is coming. Follow me at KEVOLE, Cavole. This is it. We will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.
Practice. He lit up Atlanta. He returned this punt 68 yards for a touchdown.